Hey friends, welcome back for another round of 3D printed items that you can use every day as a network installer. I'm your host, Derek from TCI, where we love networking. Now to start us off, in my last video, I shared with you a 1U cable manager, which is this model here, and I promised you I would make a 2U version when I managed to figure out how to fit all the pieces together. I finally managed to get something I'm happy with, and I'd like to show it to you now. Here are a couple different prints that I did that generate a 2U cable manager full 19-inch. This one's made of PLA, and this one's made of PETG. I think the PETG one looks a little nicer. It is a bit shinier, but I found that the PLA, when you print something that takes up almost a full plate, does pick up little imperfections or leftover plastic bits. And with this matte version of PLA, I saw the imperfections a little bit more readily. When I did a large print with PETG, it's harder to see them. So I actually like the way that this came out. I've done ABS, PLA, and PETG, and I think for this shape, the 2U cable manager came out really nice. Now, when you look at my project files, things that you might change is this hole pattern that I came up with. I was trying to stiffen this flat area so that it wouldn't bend as readily, and I was trying to reduce the amount of plastic. It's debatable whether I succeeded at that. The other thing that you might change if you were me is the length of these cable manager fingers. I might reduce this depending on the type of rack that you're going to fit this in. If it has a closing door, having long fingers here is actually counterproductive. So you might adjust this. If you feel like you really need a 2U cable manager in a locking rack, there are some changes you might make. Project files, of course, are on Maker World, and you're free to do anything you want with them. Now, another thing from my last video that you may have seen and remembered is this little thing right here. This is my horizontal cable pathway. It's meant to penetrate a wall and give you somewhere to pass your cables through. I also use it a lot for ceiling penetrations so that when I'm in a plenum space and I'm coming down with my cables, I have something that pokes through the ceiling, drop tiles, drywall, whatever, and it looks nice. And I can always color match this to the ceiling type that I'm working with by picking the appropriate plastic. However, this has one downside, which is something I encounter a lot when I'm in the field is that a customer already has a network and I'm just sort of adjusting things like you've seen in our network rescues. What we encounter a lot of times is there's a jagged hole in the ceiling and a bunch of cables coming through. And if I want to fix that, it's not very practical to pull all the cables through the ceiling, install this, and then pull them back down again. I probably have to do a lot of re-terminations in that case. So one thing that we would do is this is a PETG version of something similar to the cable pathway, except this one has a split right down the middle. And when I have a bunch of cables that I want to work with, I clasp this right over them, and then I stick it up into the ceiling, covering that jagged hole, and then we can use standard construction screws to just go right through and secure it nicely. If on the top half I don't have anything to screw into, then you might use something like this, which is another thing that clasps, and if we reverse the split, so this one will split opposite, I'll put this above the ceiling, and it'll give us something to screw into, and then that'll also give some clamping force to this so that it doesn't split apart later if someone is messing with it, moving cables around, etc. So this is really useful. I find that we use it quite a bit to neaten up networks that we're just passing through. We're not like taking ownership of the whole situation, but you look and you see a mess and you just slap this on, clasp it, screw it down, and it looks 100% better than when you found it. This next 3D print that I'm showing you is a rooftop support. A rooftop support is a triangular piece of plastic or rubber, much like this one. And what you do with it is meant to sit, much like this, on top of a roof. So in an attic space, crawl space on top of freezers and fridge and walk-in closets, things like that. Maybe you'd like to run cables along that roof, but there's something on the roof itself that creates a problem. For me, as a cable installer, the number one problem I'm worried about is, are my cables going to be sitting in some kind of water that pools when it rains, or moisture, or is it too hot, something like that. So what we do, I'll set this aside. What we do is we take a piece of UniStrut such as this and we bolt it to one of these supports. Then we take whatever pipe or cable pathway we're trying to support, put it on the strut, and use the pipe clamps without dropping them. Use the pipe clamps to lock it down, like so. And then I've given myself a cable pathway. This pipe system maybe could extend 30, 40 feet in any direction. And then I'd have a nice way to pull my cables. They won't be sitting in water. My pipes themselves won't be sitting in water. And the whole system works out quite nicely. If you're going to leave this in direct sunlight, pick your plastic carefully. I know everybody watching this already knows about ABS or ASA. In my experience, the PLA and the PETG seem to last forever in the sun, but maybe take some proper precautions so that it doesn't break down too soon. All right. Now, maybe you don't have some strut to work with, and that's perfectly fine. As I looked this over, I thought to myself, why not just print some strut? So you could print something like this and do the whole thing out of plastic if you wanted to. However, just one word to the wise, this strut is flexible, and I don't see, installing it on, say, a wall with plywood and then trying to mount a pipe like this to plastic. I don't think that's going to end very well, but maybe if you had 5 or 6 of these and you went vertically quite a bit, you might have enough support. But otherwise, I was intending this to work in a downward motion like this, and it is quite strong. On these, I've managed to stack about 300 pounds, and as near as I can tell, it didn't even dent them. But it's worth remembering that continuously applied pressure to printed plastic could deform over time. So again, you pick your plastic carefully in advance, and definitely think about the conditions it'll be in, if it's under the direct sunlight or exposed to the weather or in some sort of soil, etc. There could be chemical reactions that take place over time that break down your system that you've built. I went ahead and looked out the window just to give you an example, and I also pulled some examples from manufacturer websites to give you an idea on how this sort of 3D print is meant to be used. Now I'll wrap up my video with the following project. This here is a 12-port patch panel from TrendNet that's meant to go on the wall. It's made of metal and the backing is made of plastic. I think you can see where I'm going with this. We could totally print this out and skip a little bit of material that way. However, one thing that I see all the time on MakerWorld are people making patch panels for those 10-inch racks. And I thought to myself, why not add just a little bit of width to that and see if I could recreate this entire setup. So here's what I came up with. Now with a little bit of effort, I was able to create my own patch panel that fit within the dimensions of my printer and also offered the full 12 that I'm used to getting when I buy something off of Amazon. All of the keystones that I like to purchase fit it just fine. It fits most keystones that I've tried. So anything that, Leviton or Ideal that you might get at Home Depot, those fit this just fine. I went ahead and put in some numbers. I don't happen to have an AMS system, so I didn't color code this, but I think that'd be a natural thing to do next. And if you take my project file, you'll find that I took away the logo that I've got here, and you can put your own logo of whatever type you like on top of your own patch panel when you deploy it yourself. Now for the backing, this is what I came up with. And it's very similar to the online version. I had to make some adjustments because the printed plastic doesn't go together nearly as well as metal, and I'm assuming this is ABS. When I did my testing, ABS in this shape broke apart pretty easily. So this is made of PETG, and I think the extra flex that PETG gives you works really well. This piece I've printed out of PLA, ASA, ABS, and PETG, and all of them seem to turn out really well, so the top part doesn't matter much what you print it off. So when you fit these together, see if I can manage it. The hooks engage quite nicely, and I've been pretty happy with the tolerances of this thing as it's printed. That's on my bamboo, of course. Your mileage may vary. You have different tolerances across printers, so do some testing. And really sorry about any wasted plastic. I know all about wasted plastic. It took a lot of prints to get this one right, but I think it was worth it in the end. I've been very happy with the final product. I'm really looking forward to using this in some informal office environments so that I can do whatever I want and save everybody a little money and customize the solution just a bit. So those have been my latest projects over the last month or so. I'm happy I got to share this with you. We have all kinds of little knickknacks that we're working on. I try to save only the things that are of value to more than just me. As you know, there's everyday items that only make sense to you specifically that no one else would be interested in. So I always have my eye out for things that have more broad appeal. That's my video. For all of these projects, you can get everything that I've shared with you here on MakerWorld for free. I don't charge for anything. The models are there. You're free to reproduce these in any way that you see fit. I hope they're of use to you, and I'll see you again real soon as we build more networks. Thanks.